Hi.
Hi, Amanda.
How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Glad to be here.
Is Monday treating you well?
So far, so good. Yeah. My kids are with their dad, so I treated myself into sleeping in this morning.
Yeah. The little things that we took for granted that it's like, oh my gosh, such an appreciation.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a busy weekend and I was tired and I was like, fuck it. I'm sleeping in.
Exactly.
Welcome to the Lift Oneself podcast, where we break mental health stigmas through conversations. I'm your host, Nat, and we dive into topics about trauma and how it impacts the nervous system. Yet we don't just leave you there. We share insights and tools of self-care, meditation, and growth that help you be curious about your own biology. Your presence matters. Please like and subscribe to our podcast. Help our community grow. Let's get into this. Oh, and please remember to be kind to yourself.
Welcome to the Lift Oneself podcast. Amanda, I'm so thankful you're here with me.
Thank you so much for having me.
You had me on your podcast, and I was like, our conversation is so delicious. So I wanted to bring it over to my listeners so that we can grow the network and just play in the conversation.
Yes, I had such a great time podcasting with you. It was such a great conversation and I am so happy to do it again.
Would you be willing to come into a guided meditation with me so we can ground in our breath?
Absolutely.
And for the listeners, if you are doing something that requires your visual, please don't close your eyes. We want you to be safe and everybody around you. Yet the other prompts you're able to follow in the guidance. So, Amanda, I'll ask you to get comfortable in your seat and you're going to gently close your eyes. And you're going to begin breathing in and out through your nose, bringing your awareness to watching your breath go in and out through your nose. You're not going to try and control your breath. You're just going to let it be while staying with your breath. There may be some sensations or feelings coming up. Let them come up. You're safe to feel. You're safe to let go. Surrender the need to control. Release the need to resist and just be. Be with your breath. Drop into your body. Continue staying with your breath. There may be thoughts or memories coming up, and it's fine. Just gently bring your awareness back to your breath. Still staying with your breath. Amanda, I'm going to ask you to create in your mind an intention that you want to bring forth in this conversation and for the listeners and for ourselves. And when you've created that intention, I'm going to ask you to release it in your mind, allowing it to drop down into your nervous system, down your throat, down your chest, filling your heart, and down your chest into your stomach, into your life force. You're going to continue staying with your breath and dropping deeper into the body. Feeling that little intention surround your energy force. Still staying with your breath. Continue staying with your breath. While staying with your breath at your own time and at your own pace, you're going to gently open your eyes and stay with your breath. How's your heart doing?
It's doing good. It's doing good.
Can you let the listeners know who Amanda is?
Who am I? I am a mom. Like, first and foremost, I'm always a mom first. I have 4 beautiful daughters, who are my everything. But I'm also my own individual person, and that's taken me a long time to get to this point. Because when I became a mom, I subscribed to the memo that a lot of us do of like the kids have to come first, and I now like you die to your kids, basically. Um, and so I'm a lot of things. There's a part of me that's still an artist. I was a theater major before I dropped out. And that's still definitely that artistic side of me is still there. And I'm a writer, I'm a thinker, um, very introspective. I love reading.
Can you let the listeners know about your podcast?
Yeah. So I'm the host of the Fuck It Mothering podcast. And my whole my whole mission in life is to help other women who are moms liberate themselves off the back burners, so they can be their own individual people on top of being their own unique brand of motherhood, of mother. And so every week it's usually me by myself. I'm starting to bring on more guests like you, to bring different perspectives to the conversation. But yeah, every week I come and share stories and insights and tools and tips for women to do that.
Now, your title is very bold and I love it. I want to know what brought you to that title and where was it created?
Yeah, it's first of all, it's very much me. And before I dove into the pool of entrepreneurship, I was a staff accountant. So I had a very safe, like corporate job. And it was really scary for me to make this choice and take this leap of faith. And I I decided that if I was going to do it, I was going to be 100% myself with just reckless raw abandon because otherwise, why do it? But also, it's it ties into my philosophy of just like if a woman is going to choose herself, she has to be able to say fuck it. She has to be able to say fuck it to societal conditioning that she doesn't even know is there, gender conditioning she doesn't know is there. She's going to have to say fuck it to a lot of things in order to say yes to herself.
You becoming a mother
Mhm.
to you being now, what has that journey and process look like for yourself?
It's like 2 lifetimes ago. I feel like that was like 2 iterations of myself. I started a family at the time because I was very like deep into the Christian church, and I felt convicted one day at church for using contraceptives. I felt like it was like this moment where I was like, that's kind of like me taking control out of God's hands. And I talked to my husband at the time about it, and he agreed. And I mean, I got pregnant like basically instantly. I was very young. I had my first when I was 22. And so, and then I had a kid every 2 years because when you let God plan your family, you're just leaving it up to biology. And I was a very fertile myrtle, it turns out, with a very routine schedule. Not that I regret any of my children. I don't regret any of that at all. But it did prime me for I made that choice out of shame. And I was ashamed that I was like doing it wrong or being a bad Christian. And I didn't understand this at the time, whenever you make a choice out of shame, you're just creating more shame for yourself. And I did. I did. So me as a new mom, I was trying so hard to do the right thing, to do what I was supposed to do. And I did. I did exactly what I was supposed to do. And I it was really hard and I was really miserable. And at one point I was very isolated and um my marriage was not a good, it wasn't good for me. I was a single mom before I was technically a single mom. So I had all these babies back to back and I was doing it all myself. But I also felt really stuck because I thought God was going to hate me, if I did anything different. And so it was just a journey of learning how to love myself and
Mm.
learning how to choose myself, knowing that the universe is always for me, not against me. Um, and once I started making the choice of choosing myself and loving myself, it was very much like I can't go back to the way that I was. And so whenever, people ask me about my divorce, I talk very candidly about it. That was the first really big act of self-love that I had ever done for myself. Um, and then I got a job after being out of the job market for almost 9 years because I was a stay-at-home mom. I got a job in the pandemic, and I was just like, I did that. Like that was me. Um, and now that primed me for being where I am right now in helping other women and leaving my safe corporate job to start my own company. I could not have done this, what I'm doing right now, as that past version of myself.
How I describe it is parenting is the highest spiritual practice you could have to learn about yourself.
Yeah.
It opens up a portal that if you're willing to look, then you discover a whole bunch, or you can just keep drinking the Kool-Aid, as I call it, to feel this sense of safety that the outside knows better than you do to guide your life and to take the choices and the risks
Hmm.
of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Yet even what they give you as a prescription, it's like, okay, there may be a fault, like it's a false sense of security, yet it's dulling your energy. It's dulling your
Hmm.
personality. It's dulling your sense of feeling alive and vibrant.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what this company looks like and what you offer to mothers?
Yeah. So I am a life coach and I work with women one-on-one. Um, and I teach the main thing, the base thing where we always start is I teach them how to create time for themselves. Because if you talk to any mom, she's going to tell you she's way too busy to do anything for herself. And she truly believes that. And it's just because she thinks that she doesn't have any control over time. She thinks time is something that like happens to her. She looks at her calendar and there's no breaks in there at all. But she doesn't understand that we create time. Time is a human construct. And the reason why she doesn't have time in her calendar for herself is because she has a subconscious belief that she is not a priority in her own life. She has subconscious beliefs that her children are more important, her partner, if she's partnered, is more important, or the pursuit of getting a partner, if she's not partnered, is more important because if a woman is single, that's a problem. Um, and she doesn't recognize that social conditioning. She thinks that work is more important. She thinks that chores are more important. So many women will put chores over something that brings them joy or some like just resting, just taking a break just to do nothing. And so we always start there and it unravels all of these subconscious beliefs that she's been holding on to her whole life that she didn't even know were there. And it brings up childhood things. It brings up stuff that happened in previous relationships. There's stuff that's happening right now in her current romantic relationship. Um, and yeah, it's a little bit different and unique with each client, depending on what comes up. But the base of it is helping her like helping her create time for herself so that she can pour into herself so that she's not running on fumes anymore and realizing you have you have authority in your own life and reclaiming that authority.
Mhm. What got you from corporate job to creating this? Like, what did that look like for you? Was it a calling? Was it inspiration? Describe it for us.
So I went through a tremendous loss. I lost my father to COVID at the end of 2021. And I live in Wisconsin, but all of my family is in California. I moved here with my previous husband 10 years ago now. And so my dad, when he retired, decided to move out here because he didn't want to be in California. And he's like, if I'm not going to be in California, I might as well be with you. Um, and then with the pandemic, I ended up moving in with him. And then he died. And so it was a lot of different things going on in my life. I lost my dad. I was losing my house because he was still technically married and his wife wouldn't work with me as far as helping me and the kids like stay in that house. And I broke up with the person that I was with at the time, and it was a 3-year relationship. So it was just like this period of tremendous loss. And I was just at the bottom of the barrel again. And I was so angry and so hurt. And before that, I had gone through so much transformation and I had changed myself so much and I had like really done so much work. And I was like, how am I here again after all the work that I've done on myself? And I had been in therapy for like 5 years at that point, and I just felt like I had hit a plateau with therapy. Like I wasn't getting anywhere. I wasn't getting any deeper. Like therapy is so important. I always give this caveat whenever I'm talking about therapy. It is so important. I'm never here to diss therapy. I am saying that every modality has like its shelf life, and I had just reached the I had gone as deep as therapy was going to get me. And then at my corporate job, I discovered a podcast called Unfuck Your Brain. And I loved the title. So I was like, ooh, what is this? And it was about life coaching and thought work and how your thoughts are creating your reality. And I had never heard any of this stuff before. And that podcast completely changed my life. And I know, I was about to say, I know that the only reason why that I was able to take all of that in was because I was at such a low point in my life. And I needed it. And I had nothing left to lose to try something new and different. And it changed my life in 3 months, like completely changed my life, implementing these tools that she was teaching. And I my thought was just like, I would be so selfish if I kept this to myself because every mom that I know is drowning in stress and overwhelm. And we all just think that it's normal. We all look at each other and we're all drowning in the same ocean. So we're just like, this is just what motherhood is supposed to be, I guess. I got out of the pool and I was like, I can't just turn around and forget that all my sisters are still drowning. And that's why I started my business.
Hmm. That was a lot of grief you went through,
It
not just
was.
only with your father, yet, home stability, all those different things. And I think, as you said, there's this kind of rock bottom. It's like a surrender. Like you come to see the control that you thought you were creating really is an illusion.
Yeah.
And that's very disorientating. And the anger comes up because it's protecting the deep sadness and vulnerability. I
Yes.
appreciate you talking about the cocoon eras because we think that we go in a cocoon once and then we transform into a butterfly and we are going to be a butterfly for the rest of our lives. And there is no more cycles. I don't have to do. And it's like, the fuck am I eating myself in the cocoon again? Like, what is it? What is this? And as I call it, processing the shit, because every garden you need to have some manure to process. And what was that relationship with befriending anger for you? Or have you?
It was, no, I have. And it's just like, it's, it's multifaceted. It's learning about my own socialization as a woman and understanding like I've never been allowed to be to be angry. I've never been allowed that. I've been told that that's bad. It's unbecoming. It's not cute. It's all these things that I'm not allowed to have. And just giving myself the permission, like it's okay to be angry. That in and of itself was so transformational for me. Just like, Amanda, you get to be angry right now. And always, and learning how my anger is, like you were saying, it's the surface emotion. There's
Bodyguard.
something yeah, there's something underneath it. And it wasn't until I let it be okay that I was angry that I could even see that there was anything else underneath it. And then you get to process that and you're not hurting anymore.
Yeah, that dull ache of denial, um, and not being able to feel the sharp pain of truth. Because, like you said, if you weren't allowed to feel your true emotions, you created these secondary emotions, and then you weren't able to be vulnerable. Because until we
Mhm.
feel our authentic emotions, can we really feel that vulnerability and reveal it and relate to it?
Yeah.
Which is a process because, like you said, therapy gives you certain tools to a certain degree, yet at a certain point, the work is yourself. Like you really have to face yourself
Yeah.
and really explore, like, what are these emotions or what are these defense mechanisms I've created to have more of a profoundness. What does your intimacy look like for yourself? Or actually, let me ask you this way first. What's your definition of intimacy?
Intimacy is when you can be your true raw self
Okay.
in front of yourself or in front of another person. It's a very deep knowing of all the pieces. The
Yeah.
nice ones we like to show people and the ugly ones we don't.
And so how is that? How is your relationship with intimacy and how does it guide you?
My relationship with intimacy is still a work in progress, and I think it's a work in progress probably for most people forever. Everything is a work in progress forever. The work never ends. I've been working on my intimacy with myself and just being willing to feel exposed to my own self because I had learned to be ashamed of certain aspects of myself to such a degree that I wouldn't even allow I wouldn't allow myself to sit with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, that's the thing where, where I teach people, it's like, okay, well, there's this defense mechanism and it's gonna be like the Wizard of Oz, where the wizard had this big dark voice and it was really scary and it felt you weren't allowed to go there. You weren't allowed to see this thing.
Mhm.
Where once you allow curiosity and you allow that safety in your body to see, oh, okay, you are this part of me. And like you said, there's certain parts we have no problem showing, other parts we've been also conditioned not to show. So
Mhm.
that we fragment out of it and to integrate it back, it is a process because there's a whole way of having to rewire your nervous system not to signal the let's push this away and hide it. No, you're allowed to come in. So really engaging with that fear and
Yeah.
navigating through that turbulence of what that felt like what that feels like with the integration and accepting yourself as a whole with a W and not
Yes.
those fragmented parts with a H with a whole. What has are you able to identify when you're afraid?
Yeah. Yeah, I am.
Are you able to verbalize it for yourself and just say, Amanda, I'm afraid?
Yep. Absolutely.
And how long did it take you to be comfortable with that and be able to just identify it right away?
It's a good question. Because on the one hand, I feel like I've never really had issues identifying fear and like admitting like I'm scared. But on the other hand, like I admit it to myself, not necessarily admit it to other people. I think that whole journey of like being okay with other people knowing that I'm afraid too, um, that's very recent, last few years.
Yeah. Again, what we hear is don't be afraid, don't have fear. And then it's like, well, your nervous system needs healthy fear. And to be afraid of the unknown and uncertainty, it's a very healthy human thing to navigate through. Yet if you
Hmm.
keep, you're not afraid, yet you're facing this unknown, there's this like signaling bouncing back and forth and creating more and more fear because you're
Hmm.
actually navigating in this, but we're not able to really validate to let that pressure out and, find the solutions of how do we, keep moving in this unknown and uncertainty
Yeah.
with certain actions and not splinter ourselves while we, traverse and walk through that. How is it? How is your parenting with your daughters? What do you see about yourself? Like when you see those parts of yourself that might be prickly or how do you interact with that? How do you navigate through that?
Yeah, that like you mentioned earlier, parenting is like it's its own self-discovery journey on its own because it brings up all of the shit. And then your kids are these mirrors that reflect all of your shit, all of your good things too. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey because before I started doing like the work on myself and learning to love myself, I'd see those pieces of me surface in my kids and want to like squash it because it's like, oh, no, that can't surface in you because then you're going to suffer like me. The world is going to like have to do a lot they're going to break you. Like, no, just end it now. Nip it in the bud. Um, and now that I have like awareness and also just love for myself, um, it's it's more of just like this it's more of just a moment where I have to laugh. I'm very sarcastic. I can be very abrasive sometimes to people, I've been told. So just when my kids are like that comes out in them, it's just kind of like I just kind of have to laugh, because I'm like, my God, I really do have four little mini Amandas. I'm so sorry. It's just funny and it's also beautiful seeing pieces of myself in them, and even the pieces that are hard because I know that the pieces that were hard have made me who I am today and I really like the me that I am today. I have a lot to offer. I'm a really great person. And so I don't I don't regret the pieces that are hard that I see come up in my kids either because I know they're there for a reason and they're there to become something beautiful in a different way than me.
Yeah. Have you engaged with, because for myself, I see the social conditioning of those pieces that were hard that I was told that they are not to be allowed to be fully expressed or to be curious or hold the space of self-discovery and self-realization. And unfortunately, sometimes the parenting role, it's like these children are supposed to have it all together. Like you're supposed to make no mistakes, no errors, and just have it all together. Where it's like, no, actually, this is a long process. Like
Hmm.
this, and to give that space of the long process and allow that messiness of
Yeah.
childhood, which I wasn't allowed to, like, I had it in some parts, but I got compared to my cousins a lot. So it was this signaling of not good enough and what I'm doing isn't amounting to anything where it's like, no, this is this self-discovery that has to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it can be hard because it's like in so many ways I feel like I'm doing something new, something new that other people in my inner circle haven't seen before. And so yeah, I there are certain comments that come up, from family members just like wow, you let the girls talk like that, or they're allowed to just explode at you like that. And I'm like, yep, they sure are, because I'm doing something new here. And I know that it's loud and it's different and it makes you uncomfortable, but that's a you thing, you feeling uncomfortable. And I'm not going to try to control my kids. I'm not going to tell them, I'm not going to tell my girls that they have to make themselves small to make anybody feel comfortable, because you need to work on your feelings.
Yeah,
And but it's hard. It's hard to have those conversations with your family.
it is. It is in society. Well, especially with your family and your inner circle, because when it's strangers and stuff, it's much more easier because there's nothing of us looking at ourselves and wanting to have a sense of belonging. I
Yeah,
know.
but I mean, that's not easy for everybody. There are a lot of people who worry about what most people worry about what strangers think. And that's just that very primal part of your brain that evolved because we belonged in a tribe, and they don't realize that. And that's the thing. It's just like, well, you just don't realize that that's that primal part of your brain speaking up right now, and you don't have to listen to it.
Yeah, exactly. And you can feel it. You have the capacity to feel it because a lot of times we don't feel that we can feel these big emotions, these big energies that come up because we've never interacted with it before. We never felt this stuff come up or these
Hmm.
messages come up because that's all emotions are messengers. Yet most of us, if we don't feel it, you can't hear the message. And we just
Right.
push it back down to be able to see, like, oh, I have the capacity to feel this, to listen, and then do that critical thinking, to start
Yes.
thinking for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's crazy to me to think back on like my past self and realize like how scared I was just to feel a negative emotion in my body. And when you allow the negative emotions to just exist, when you just like give it permission to be like, okay, you can be here. It's okay. It passes so much faster. Like the I this is the story that I kind of go back to because it's such a powerful example of this. I was driving on the freeway at night and I got hit by a wave of grief. It was within the first year after losing my dad, and I just got hit by a wave of grief and I couldn't pull over. There wasn't an exit for another like 6 miles. I was just like, it would be so much more dangerous for me to pull over on the side, the shoulder in the dark. Because in Wisconsin, there aren't street lights on the freeway. Like it's just the lights from the headlights. That's it. So it's like, okay, I am going to allow this emotion. It's going to be okay. I'm going to feel it while driving because I don't have any other choice. But I also know that this sensation in my body is not going to kill me. And it was intense. It was like hyperventilating and just the primal sobs. And it, in 15 minutes, it was over. It was totally just passed through my body. It didn't ruin the rest of my night. I wasn't in a depressive funk the rest of the night because I had felt it. And the lingering sensations that usually accompany something so heavy and intense come from resisting the emotion. But no one tells us this. No one teaches us this. If you actually allow it and you process it, it can be over even something as big and intense as a really big wave of grief in 15 minutes. And you can be fine for the rest of the night.
And for some, like it's also too, like it might not be that. It might be an hour that you have to sit with this, that there's
Yeah.
so much coming up. And what I also offer to people is there's going to be rage and grief. So
Oh,
allow
yeah.
yourself to scream, like
Yes.
allow, because, you know, when we hum and when we sing, it vibrates the back of our throat, which is where the vagus nerve is. So that helps with some regulation. So being able to vibrate, like scream and it not having to make sense, because grief doesn't make sense.
No, it's so messy. And you just have to let it be messy.
There's so much confusion, so much trying to find certainty, trying to find your old life the way you knew it and resisting this new world that you're coming into. Like it's
Hmm.
so many things. So it's like allow there to be these expressions of rage, and befriending that rage to allow the body to have these somatic releases. Yet I really appreciate the definition, like, of, and sharing that experience of like, okay, I really sat with this. And afterwards I got to see the power of, when I feel my feelings, it's not going to hijack my state of mind.
Right. Right. Because I'm always in the driver's seat.
And it's not always accessible though. Like, I know for myself, sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm in the back seat and these emotions are kind of taking over my behavior. And it's like, you know better, come on, get back to the drive. It's like, okay, get out of autopilot. And it's like, okay. Yet it's cultivating those tools. And again, it's that self-awareness of being, as I tell people, the three simple things about healing is: you need safety for the nervous system so it can
Mhm.
open up. You need radical honesty so you can really see yourself, and you need to be able to feel. So
Yeah.
whatever's coming up, so that you can hear the messages and see how you're actually treating yourself. Like you said with the mothers, a lot of them have no idea how they're not even a person.
Right.
Everybody is an other, and they don't even realize they're a part of the other. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm just a robot and I have no
Right.
sensations.
Right. And like, they're always talking about like, well, I have to do what's best for my family. And I'm like, you're a part of the family. So if you aren't doing what's best for you, you automatically are not doing what's best for the family. They're not even thinking about themselves in the equation of the family.
Yeah, it's just something othered. You're outside of the environment. And that, that's, those are big indications too of trauma, of disassociating and just finding that safety. Because if I do what's best for the family, then I have the image for society, I have the image for the family, and I
Hmm.
have sense of perfection in this. So I'm
Hmm.
doing, like you mentioned at the beginning of, well, if I do contraceptives, I'm not being a true Christian. So that shame, and
Yes.
recognizing like, wait a minute, I have this illusion, this ideology, this belief system that if it looks like this, then I'm accepted. And I
Right.
have
But I
all,
just created more shame for myself. I created shame by being a very young mom. I got lots of comments about that. I created more shame by pumping out kids like every 2 years, just like every other Mexican, and not being able to afford any of them because I started out so young. Like I just created so much more shame and I didn't realize it at the time.
yeah. And once we have that realization, it's like, okay, it was all in a sense of protection. Yet you
Yeah.
understand it's like, oh, but that wasn't the protection I needed anymore.
No.
It's like trusting myself and believing in myself, and not
Yes.
this outside guidance. I think, the space that I hold too, because a lot of people have been harmed with religion, that it's
Yes.
made them feel not enough, or that they haven't been in the good grace of the good Lord. So they have to take all these steps. And um, it's a very lonely space to be in. So I'm thankful that you woke up and came out of the box and the paradigm of that, and
Yes.
engaged with the shame. Because people think it
Yeah.
just way, but it's like, no, I got to engage to find out why you keep getting activated, so that
Yes.
you no longer keep ringing this alarm.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I my my views on religion and spirituality are so different now. I It really seems to me that like religion is always, no matter what religion we're talking about, it's always that's man's version of putting spirit in a box. And I do believe that there's a higher spirit. There's something connecting all of us. Um, And I also believe that it wants good for us. And something that never made sense. There was a lot of things that never made sense about certain rules in Christianity and my experience with God, spirit, whatever you want to call it. But especially after I became a mom, I was just like, I would bury a body for my kids. Like I would I love my kids so fiercely, and I think that they are amazing. I love them so much, and I think nothing but good about them. Not that they're perfect, okay? I'm aware that they're not perfect, but like I believe in their ultimate goodness. And I believe that that's true for every person because every baby comes out the same. So, how is it also true that, in the Christian faith, if you don't believe in Jesus and the Christian God, that God will send you to hell? I would never do that to my children, ever. I don't care what paths they took. I would never do that to my children. It just, things like that just don't make sense at all.
I was questioning that as a young child, and I grew up in the Catholic religion. So I
Okay.
would question, how is God an unconditional loving God that is ever forgiving? Yet if I do some sins and I don't repent, I'm going to go to hell. But I don't
Mm,
know what those sins are and asking for forgiveness.
right.
So these two things just don't match up. And why would there be a hell? Like, why would God create me for me to be set up to fail?
Yeah. Yeah. There's
And
so much shame laced in the Christian faith, the Catholic Christian, anything that comes from like that core. There's so much shame wrapped up in it. And I don't subscribe to it anymore.
yeah. And the aspect of, for me, it was for Catholics, the priest could only touch the Bible. None of us could touch the Bible. And you had to go through the priest to talk to God. And I was like, why do I have to talk to this person to get to God? Like, why wouldn't God be inside me? And I have a direct line if I was created from God. So all these
Right.
things I questioned as a child. So you can imagine how, I was a hedonism and defiant and just shut your mouth and stop,
Right.
challenging authority. And yeah. So I'm very thankful that I had critical thinking at a
Yeah.
young age. If it was supported in a different way, I know my path would be different, yet I know everything is for its reason. And
See, that's the thing
um,
though. Like every kid has critical thinking. My
yeah,
kids have so many questions.
yeah,
If something doesn't make sense, like they have to question it. They can't help it. And I, all four of them, like it's not a personality thing. It's just like we're all brought out. We all come out that way. Just like, wait, what? This doesn't add up. This doesn't make sense. And then we question it. And the reason why we don't continue doing that as adults is just because it is beaten out of us. No
mhm,
matter what culture you come from, it gets beaten out of you.
mhm. It really does. Um, I profoundly love when we do these awakenings, and then when we have conversations, we can delve on the other side of seeing, the damage that society has done, and it's induced by fear. Because anytime there's any kind of behavioral control, it's okay, well, I have this perception of I know what safety is or what the world is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
And it's even really looking at these religions and looking at the sexes and who created these religions and the dominance of human behavior and what looks like. So I want to bring you into a reflective question.
Okay.
I want to ask you to take your awareness right now and to go back to your 18-year-old self. And you have 3 words to tell your 18-year-old self to carry you to the journey of right now. What would those words be?
Trust yourself.
Are you willing to share what your intention was at the beginning in the meditation?
Yeah. Yeah. Authenticity was the word that came up for me.
And I believe we have really unpacked that. And mine was safety. So really allowing us both to dive deep into a conversation. And
Yeah.
I know those many listeners that can finally see themselves and be curious of, how do I come out of this cave? Like the
Yeah.
allegory theory, where you're in a cave and you're looking, but you don't realize there's this big open space, but the open space feels very intimidating.
Right.
Yeah,
Because it's new.
it is. It
Yeah.
is.
But if you
Okay,
trust yourself, you can be safe in the new space.
exactly. And we're not really taught that.
No,
We're
we're not taught to trust ourselves.
no. We're always told that we're not good enough and we haven't reached there and we still have so much more to go and yada yada yada. I know the listeners are like, okay, enough, Nat, hush your mouth. Where can I find Amanda? So can you let the listeners know where you are, what you're offering, and all that good stuff?
Yes, the best place to come and hang out with me is my podcast, Fuck It Mothering. It's fuck without the U though, so FCK Mothering. And I'm also on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. And I have a free gift. It's a time management guide for moms. It's called Shit, PJ Day was today. It's not your average time management guide. And I would love to offer that to your listeners. But yeah, my podcast is the best way to come and hang out with me.
And how would they get that gift?
I will give you a link.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll give you a link to share.
Do you have a website?
I don't. That's on my to-do list for this month, is to finally create a website.
Okay, so they can reach you on the social media. Okay.
Yeah.
So for the listeners, all of her information will be in the show notes, and that link will be accessible because I know we're in the cyborg age, so we don't do research. We just want click, click, and bring me directly to.
We want that instant gratification.
Exactly. So, and I want to link you as soon and as clear with Amanda. So if there was any inclination that all of a sudden things resonated when she spoke, don't second doubt. Just reach out to her, even if it's a
Trust
question.
yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Just reach out to her. And as you heard in this conversation, she's very open and a delight to connect with. And she really holds a space of listening and understanding.
Thank you. I really enjoy our conversations.
Yeah, me too. I'm very thankful for the alchemy that you've done in your life, taking those impurities and turn them into gold, and not only keeping it for yourself, you're sharing it with the others. So like you said, I got out the pool, but I wasn't just going to leave everybody else in the pool. So
Yeah, I couldn't.
thank you for that. And I look forward to having you again on the podcast because I
Yeah,
love the way
likewise.
we dive deep into our conversations.
Yes, same.
Please remember to be kind to yourself.
Always.
Hey, you made it all the way here. I appreciate you and your time. If you found value in this conversation, please share it out. If there was somebody that popped into your mind, take action and share it out with them. It possibly may not be them that will benefit. It's that they know somebody that will benefit from listening to this conversation. So please take action and share out the podcast. You can find us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok under Lift Oneself. And if you want to inquire about the work that I do and the services that I provide to people, come over on my website, come into a discovery call, liftoneself.com. Until next time, please remember to be kind and gentle with yourself. You matter.